Hello, audio tech check. Check on the audio. Anything? Says I'm outputting now. No. Quiet. How about now? Anything? Better? Worse? I'm gonna move it closer. How about that? A little bit better? Better? Worse? Slightly the same. Lots of technical difficulties today. Let's see. How about this? I'll turn down the music a little bit so you can turn up the overall sound. How's that? Maybe I'll do this. Better? Anything? Is that better? The contrast should be a little higher, at least this way, so that you can, at the very least, do one more than the other now. Am I correct in that, or am I incorrect? Okay, good now. I'm getting a good now. So I will start with that. It doesn't... we'll figure that out as we go. I can probably retract that. Okay. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so I'm here with general news today, everyone. Live stream. So we're doing some pretty major changes to the UX of things. You can actually already kind of see it on the screen that I'm streaming right now. I wanted to talk about a couple of the big things that it's going on and go from there. So one of the first things you'll notice, and this whole thing, is we now have a different navigation at the top. So now, one of the feedback I was hearing a lot of was that navigation is not the easiest thing to follow along with. So today I worked with our UX engineer to try and get something a little bit better. Actually, it was yesterday, but you know, same difference. So we're looking at a little bit different of a navigation. You'll see that there's at the top very clear definitions of, you know, play games, you run games, or you create games. There's also the marketplace for anything else. For sold content specifically, and I'll get back to that in a second, but instead I'll cover these first three categories a little bit more. So like play games is like where you would go as a player, right? So if I'm a new player, I want to come onto Hedron to play something, that's probably where I'm going to look. So you click on play games and you see this menu. There's still work in progress, so I haven't actually made all these tabs work. You'll notice they actually all show you your account information, so nothing super significant. But the goal is that find a game would help you, as it sounds like, find a game. Basically takes you to the campaigns page for you to browse, and we're working on revising that flow a little bit too. Rule sets would basically be a list of the rule sets that are most commonly like activated, so to speak, like the context that people like to set to, and there'll also be a button to browse all the rule systems as well. Recent games is games that you would have recently played in, or games you were involved in or looked at recently, sort of like a tracker of like where you were recently, in the sense that you can now go back to where you were very quickly. Characters is the characters you've built, characters you're playing, characters that you might want to play based on what you looked at recently. So again, it's sort of like giving you a trail that you could like pick up off of if you ever feel a need to sort of jump off of where you used to be and now you want to kind of continue there. Of course, there's gonna be a button there to create a new character if you want to. Of course, the button to also browse all of the characters if you want to. Your books will take you to any like note sections that players might have. So if you created a book to keep track of all your notes for a particular campaign, that would be a good place to find that. Campaign materials is the one that's a little bit the most broad, I guess. It'll have links to your character sheets, for example, links to materials your GM might have handed out, and also just general information about the campaign you're in and like the session like maps, in other words, the battle grids that you're currently on, things like that, links to those kind of things. Moving on to run games, I don't remember where I stopped when I was developing this. This does look accurate. Yeah, so you'll notice it's a little bit different. There's start a game to start a campaign. There's rule sets, that's going to be the same. Recent games, kind of similar to the player side of things. Recent games and your campaigns are just all the campaigns that you are currently GMing for. So it's a little different because recent games would include things that are things you've looked at but you haven't necessarily been involved in, or things that were updated recently, whereas your campaigns would be stuff that you've actually actively GMing for. Campaign materials here for a GM is going to be a little bit more broad. It'll basically include all the different spells and items and links to those kind of things. Meanwhile, world building is going to have all the lore related stuff. So all of the books and the lores and the maps and the timelines and calendars and those kind of things all under that section. Management tools, like it currently is set to, it's going to have the charts, the importer, things like that, things that you might find useful. And then, of course, more is the sort of catch-all for everything else, especially because we know that the lines might blur sometimes between a game master who homebrews a lot and a system designer, which is the last tab that I believe I haven't actually talked about yet. The last tab is about system designers. I think, yeah, this tab hasn't been touched yet. But the goal here is that it will basically contain a lot of the same stuff that you see as a game master, but instead of your campaigns, it would be your systems. And of course, in addition to that, it'll also have links to creating new content or creating new modules or creating like different expansions basically for your rule system and managing all of that kind of stuff. Things that are common to all of these is that you notice I can just kind of jump between them. This is also now a setting on your profile. So on your profile, there'll be a little field, and I think actually I've set that part up, but I'm not going to go there. It's a setting that's like, what is your primary like reason for being on a Hedron? Are you primarily looking to be a game master? Are you primarily looking to be a system designer? That kind of thing. That basically determines that when I refresh the page, which of these three are highlighted. So I just refreshed. You'll notice it put me on play games. That's because I'm currently set to player. I could go back and set it to something else. In fact, actually, I'll just show you real quick. Instead of player, I could set it to like, let's say game master. Now it saves automatically. So I just click refresh again, and you'll notice it now highlights run games by default. So that's sort of a functionality to try to reduce the number of clicks and efforts you have to do to get to where you want to be. And then of course, the new tab, which sort of segues into the next thing I want to cover in terms of big news. The marketplace is now live, and more officially, the marketplace is now live with the Black Ballad. This is a new piece written by the Storyteller's Forge. It's a full campaign, mostly setting information, I will say. So this is a massive thing. So in a PDF, this is 200 pages. They are our first publisher to come on to Hedron, so big congrats to them. I'm telling you right now, there will also be a reward for anyone who ends up buying this, whether now or 50 years from now, whenever it happens. Anyone who gets this will get a profile flare saying they were here at the beginning, so to speak, because it is the first publisher. It is the first product on the marketplace. Now, the question that you're probably more wondering about, and this isn't an advert, so you're probably wondering more about this. How do I get on the marketplace? And so that is a great question. Even today, so even though this is my development build, this is the build that I'm working on for the next set of updates. You'll be seeing it soon enough. Maybe by the time anyone sees this video, they'll probably already have it up. But I want to call attention to it. On your profile, there's now a section for onboarding onto the marketplace. My account's already set up, but in your section, you'll basically see a link here to connect your account to a Stripe account that will basically act as your interface for collecting payments of any kind. So as you're selling your content, you can set up your Stripe integration, and it's from the feedback I've gotten so far, it seems like it's a pretty straightforward process. And to be fair, I tried to make it as like hard to mess up as possible. It's just a very like, do this, then you do this, then you do this, and it's walks you through everything basically, and it gives you a lot of information as you're doing it. So it kind of tells you like what exactly are you doing, like why are you doing it, that kind of stuff. So go ahead and look at it. If you want to ever sell your content, if you just set it up. The one limitation I know that we have right now, which I'm going to address by the end of the week probably, is if you are a non-US seller, so if you're located in somewhere else in the world, maybe you're in Europe, maybe you're in Australia, maybe you're somewhere else in the world, we don't actually have a way for that to work in our Stripe right now, because the way kind of Stripe works behind the scenes is you have to set up a country when you create the account. Unbeknownst to me, I don't collect information about your countries. As I mentioned, like Hedron tries to collect as little information as possible about your profiles. When we collect, or when we want to make this work for you guys, we need to basically ask you, what country are you selling from? So are you selling it as a European seller? Are you selling it as an Australian seller? And, all those kind of little details. And then when we create your account, we have to basically set your account to that country. Now, this kind of seems like, why does this have to go this way? It's basically like you can't edit someone's country once it's been created. So if you create a Stripe connection and you're not in the US, you literally can't unlink it. So if that happens to you, just, send me a message or email me, support@projecthedron.com, or, find us on any of our social platforms. I can fix it for you. I'll basically unlink your account, and then when we have the country support for other countries, you can just go back in, same process, and it'll just basically have an extra question that's like, are you in the United States or are you somewhere else? And, you check that, you move on. It shouldn't be too hard, but, we'll find out. But anyway, those are some of the big news that's been going on. There's a lot of things. Other news, I guess, personal update real quick. I was out the last few weeks from COVID and a trip for my day job. I'm back now, back to full steam ahead. I actually don't think we slowed down all that much. I think if you look at the update logs, they're about the same. So, take that as you will. Something I'm really focusing on, I think, right now, especially because as I think a lot of our core functionalities are really getting in place. Like the marketplace was a big push, as some of you guys know. It was about, getting this whole new like Stripe integration all functional. That was our first goal of our crowdfunding, now achieved. So what's next, right? So I think the next step for Hedron holistically will be looking at how do we make the user flow as clean as possible. And you can kind of see it already in my actions. I really want to hear from you guys. So feel free to throw suggestions in the chat. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Me talking to you all helps me to understand, where are we falling short? Where are we excelling, right? That's really important. That I can't overstate how important that is. I can't understate how important that is. That is paramount, right? So even this navigation change, right? So I think something that I noticed was happening was a lot of people who have been on the site for a long time. So people like me, people like Katie Pomeroy, who's publishing a system, people like Brad Tales Untold, all of us have been using the site long enough that we got used to how it works. But that doesn't help new users, right? So as people are coming on, as you're sending your system to your players, as you're publishing content on the marketplace, as you're doing your own stuff as your system creators, it doesn't help people find stuff. It gets actually really difficult for people to find what they're looking for. So that is something we need to fix, right? And so this navigation change that I'm showing right now is sort of like the first step towards doing that. I think there will be a lot more. So to kind of give you a sort of synopsis of where we are from behind the scenes, like where's everyone, right? I'm here working pretty much on the UX and user flow. So, hi, Manta from Storytellers Forge. I haven't met you before, but welcome. I was at their stream as well. But yeah, like I wanted to point that out and actually address that chat right now, because there will be people like Manta who are coming from Storytellers Forge, right? People who have never heard of Hedron, people who have no idea what Hedron is, and I think we really need to focus on them even more. And I think the best way to do that is to perfectly align people's expectations with what they actually see. So this is kind of like what I'm talking about, right? So if you look at this like navigation at the top right, we have play games, run games, create games. I feel like this was actually a community suggestion. It was originally named something slightly different, but same principle, where we basically are saying, if you're a player coming on to play, like for example, Black Ballad, what are you probably going to do? Once you have it from the marketplace, one of the first things you do is like, I want to play it. What do I look for? Play games. Makes sense. How else would you find it? we want to basically, scroll up a bit. I'm scrolled up as much as I can. I hope if it's not streaming through. Okay, message rejected. Okay, fair enough. Play games, there's run games, there's create games. For each of these, it kind of tells you ahead of time, right? Like, where are you going? What are you doing, right? If you're the one, I think is the one that maybe needs the most feedback is create games here. I feel like create games could mean being a GM. It could also mean being a system designer. So we'll start with create games and we'll get feedback and, we'll iterate on this. Nothing we do is ever permanent. Remember that, right? It's all about feedback. It's all about working with you guys to figure out what is the best way to represent what we're representing. And so this is sort of our first step towards doing that is play games takes you to playing games. Run games takes you to creating a campaign to then invite players to. Create games creates a system. And even among these submenus, right? So you click play games, it shows you the submenu. Like the first thing is find a game. Or you could say recent games. Where was I recently? These are both like really paramount ways to get to what you want to get to. If you're running a game, the next thing you see is like, I want to run games. Oh, let me start a game. Or maybe this is the campaigns I'm already involved in. Or the recent games. Maybe recent games is a typo here. I don't know if this is supposed to be here. As I mentioned, this is a development version. This is a work in progress. I actually have the full UX in a different window, but that's a really technical thing as well. So I'm not going to show that right now. But basically, this update will go out very soon, and I'm really excited to kind of see what people's feedback is. I think Brad from Tales Untold, absolutely correct. Like, new user experience will be paramount, and I think it'll be cool to see. So let's to go back to what I was saying. Let's talk about where we are as Hedron right now, right? Core features are pretty good right now. We have a few more core features that we need to add in. Like we need to add macros and validations, which are basically automated ways to do a sequence of actions. This is basically a generalized solution to tabletop gaming, right? Like it's sort of a way of like, how can we make it so no matter what system you're playing, there's a way to automatically do what your system wants you to do. So that's one thing. Validations are basically a way of validating a character build is valid. So because Hedron doesn't capture all the use cases. Like, so for example, maybe like, heritage is a common example. If you're in a system that has multiple heritages or types of heritages, like maybe you have ancestries and backgrounds, right? I think that's how Pathfinder 2e works. You have ancestries and backgrounds. In the case of ancestry and backgrounds, you want someone to select one ancestry and one background. Right now, there's no way to do that. There's only a way to specify they can have up to 2 heritages, but there's no way to specify which of them are ancestries and which of them are backgrounds. Validation's supposed to solve that. It's supposed to be like, once your character's built, it goes through and checks a bunch of conditions, and they all have to be true. Otherwise, you get a little warning for your GM that says this character might not be valid. And so that's a good feature. But other than that, if you think about it, that's not even a huge feature. That's not going to be something that's like becomes a navigation tab. It's going to be something that gets built into rule systems. Similarly, macros, like those automated sequences, those are going to be like added to all the entities. They're not going to be its own tab. Custom dice, I guess, is a bigger one. Like having a custom roll table, custom dice systems, those kind of things. Those will be its own network tab, but like otherwise everything else will basically be somewhere else. So to kind of go back to what I'm saying, we're kind of done with the core features. So what's next, right? And the next thing is all about the user experience, all about making it easier to do things, because we started with system designers. I think most of the people on Hedron are system designers. Most of the people here who are willing to go through the patience and learning process of actually learning how to use Hedron. So for them, the navigation was workable. And even that is not completely true. There are people who were very unhappy with our navigation, and I think it's valid. I want people to, as much as I want people to be happy, and that's my end goal, people expressing their unhappiness is important, right? It's how we improve. So no matter what feelings you have, if you have a way that you feel like we could be better, say it. Like, tell me somehow. Whether in the chat right now, in Discord, whatever it is, I want to hear your feedback, because that's how we improve. This whole navigation discussion was something that someone just said, basically. And someone said this, and then I was like, you know what? I kind of wonder how common this sentiment is. And so I started a thread, and now here we are with like a bunch of people who are basically saying this is a much better way of doing it. And of course, there's still some more work to be done here, but this is just a development build. But it will be a good testament to like how community's feedback is how we progress in Hedron. Anyway, so with that like very long-winded thing, I'm excited also to see where we're heading. We're working behind the scenes. We have one UX engineer. His name's Dan. He is working. You'll see him on the Discord as Grey One. He works on the navigation right now. He's working on the homepage. So something I envision is the homepage should become the most useful place for anyone who is already using the site. And how are we going to achieve that? I'm kind of thinking that the homepage should be a place where you can go as a system designer to pick up where you left off. It could be for a game master to go back to their research, go back to their notes, go back to like what they were recently looking at. And for a player, it should be like jump back into the session that you were in, right? Or build a new character or start something new or join a new game or something like that, right? It should somehow come to a point where everyone, instead of bookmarking specific pages on Hedron, you just bookmark the home page and you know that it has everything you need in one place. That's the goal. I see. And yeah, we'll get to that point eventually. But Hunter says, I think changing the background color to improve visibility might help since it's tricky to differentiate from the BG of the page content. Like as in this dark background, just to clarify. So if I go to like this, right? Oh, different background color. Oh, for this section, for like the sub navigation, you mean? Not for this. I see. Yes. Okay, I understand. Yeah, actually, so that's what I was also actually starting to think. So I'm just right now the coloration at least is accurate to what Dan designed, but I'm actually kind of agreeing. I agree with that. I think. And I'll probably message him after this, where it does actually kind of blend in, like right here. You can't really tell where the background ends and where the little sub navigation is. There is actually another color we use in our palette that maybe might be a good substitute, but I agree that there should probably be some sort of like background behind this as well, because otherwise it just kind of blends into the rest of the page. I don't know if it should be the same as the header though, but anyway, we'll see. There's another blue shade we use. I wonder if it's on this page somewhere. It might be. There's a lot of shades of blue and dark blue and grays. But yeah. Oh, it might be this shade. Like this shade that we use for the dice right here in the background. That might be a good shade to differentiate between the header, but also differentiate between the page content. Just a thought. But yeah. That's sort of the high level where we are. And then so Dan's working on navigation and all that sort of stuff. He's also going to be revising the pages. So like when you actually look at like all, I actually don't think there's a way for me to get there in my development version because this page, all the pages for like spells and stuff all look like this. We basically have to create a way to make it better. This is kind of a bad example because there's only one thing here. I'll just do this /spells. That should take me to the right place. There you go. With a 404, I guess, in the middle somehow. But anyway, this page needs a little work as well, I think, to make it a little bit more easy to look at, easy to look through. But that's less a priority of some of the other things. So, with that, meanwhile, on the opposite front of things, while we have someone looking at the UX of the site holistically, we also have Southpaw, who is looking at the rule system designer, the rule set editor. He's trying to make the rule set editor more intuitive, more easy to follow, more easy to go through and make the changes you need to make. So I'll be curious to see how that goes. I, of course, give feedback as they produce designs. I look at them and I kind of tell them, like, what do I think is important? What do I think people think is important? So that kind of stuff. So please let me know, because ultimately you telling me helps me tell them what's important. So helps everyone in the end. Okay, that's basically all the big news and all the place we are. Normally, these live streams, I go over some sort of like tutorial on something. I decided to hold off on that this week. Not because I don't want to do it, but because anything I record right now will end up being outdated within like a week, basically. Because I'm revising the navigation entirely. So like the navigation is going to change entirely. furthermore, even if the navigation isn't important enough, normally I'd pick up off the rule system editor, because the rule system editor was what we were recording last time. We can't do that because if I update the rule system editor, I will also simultaneously be having that change in the next couple weeks. So we're going to put a pause on that. I'm going to find some other guides. I'm actually probably going to query our Discord, ask people publicly, like, hey, what do you think our next guide should be on? And it'll probably be something new, but there's a lot of pages on Hedron that are probably not going to get touched immediately. They're not going to be improved in the near future. So we'll get to that point when we get to that point, but there'll be a question about it. So look out for that. My question for you guys then, as I'm like sort of wrapping up the stream for today, and I'll be, of course, back for Fireside Chats in the Discord server on Mondays and Saturdays, if you didn't know that. Any questions on top of mind? I'm happy to show things while I'm here, like quick answers, go over some quick tutorials, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, this was sort of more of an update news kind of information stream. Question time. Throw any questions you have, any feedback you have, things like that. Or even if you have ideas for guides, like if you have things that you wish you understood more about Hedron, let me know. We're writing a couple guides actually right now. We have some people now designated to guide writing and nothing else. So that should help get some more guides. The hope is that maybe by end of year, we have a substantially larger number of guides that are out and available for people to use. Okay, going once. I'll wait a few minutes, actually. There's no rush. I'll wait a few minutes, and then after this, I go back to editing and writing this, like, the code for this. Basically, getting that navigation bar up and working. There are some functionalities that will take a little longer, but, you know, we'll have everything out, hopefully, today. It's my main objective today, so. It was actually a lot of work even getting this working. Like, this was actually substantially more difficult than it might seem. But, you know, it's part of the process, right? Any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about? Sort of a fireside chat via live stream. I always said that if one day, not right now, it's not necessary now, but one day if Hedron really gets popular to a point that like there's like 20 people coming to fireside chats every time, or even 10 people, then we'll have to basically go and just do live streams consistently. How is playtesting going? Yeah, playtesting is basically a so we ran into an issue. That's actually how we identified the site navigation issue. Is a lot of playtesters came in and one of their biggest feedbacks was like, how do I start? Like, where do I go? What do I do? I don't know. And for them, like, you know, they don't have an investment in Hedron, right? They're new playtesters. They're just coming on to play games. They don't want to learn some complex navigation. So that's kind of like where we wanted to go with that. Tales Untold. With the new setup, I was wondering where you would find loose pages that aren't connected directly to books. Is there going to be sort of a wiki section? That's a good point, actually. Even right now, actually, it's kind of hard to find books. You have to actually search in the search bar to find a loose page. Sorry, not find books, find pages. If there's a page that's not connected to a specific book, then you'd have to search for it. That might be another thing to address. Maybe it should be under your books. Like maybe like here it says your books, and then there's also like when you hover over it or click on it or something, there's a section for like your pages that are not connected to books or something like that. That's a good point. I will take note of that. Otherwise, there's always the Your Content tab. This tab's not going anywhere. You can always go here to find, you know, if you didn't know, this tab takes you to all of the pages that you own. And now you can use these arrows to like sort of look through all the pages. It's alphabetical. At some point, I want to add a search bar here so you can search your pages, because that'll probably be very handy. So yeah, expect that. Xian asks, how are the map updates going? So we did overhaul the maps recently, like relatively recently. Was there a specific thing about maps that you are asking about? So like some of the things I know we still need to do is map importing. and map like filtering, basically, like filters as in like making a map that looks like a fantasy style map rather than like a SVG drawing, basically. And we have plans for both of those. Those are not done yet. Those will probably have to wait a little bit because we have so many things just in like circulation right now. But as like I think like right after the mobile app, which is probably next month, then that's the next focus. Imports, yeah. So imports will probably also, it'll be a little bit of a process. So basically there's a couple different kinds of importing that we have to address. There's importing for PNGs and JPEGs and things like that, like sort of images. Something I'm going to do in the next week or two, actually, very soon, is I'm going to make it so you can just sort of paste an image on a map. Like just raw image, doesn't have anything fancy going on, doesn't really fully take advantage of Hedron's like abilities, but it lets you basically create a map that has the basic stuff, right? Like it has all the basic functionalities, and then you can just kind of add landmarks on top of that map or articulate regions of the map yourself. So it's sort of an intermediate step. The long term is we need to actually be able to like image process, like process your image, find the edges, convert it to an SVG, and then put it up. Common question I get, why are we using SVGs if they're so complicated? And I'm just going to answer it because it's on the topic. SVGs allow infinite zoomability. That's one of the big advantages of them. So if you go to any of the existing maps right now, actually, I'll just go to one right now. Oh, I guess my development build doesn't like SVG pages. I'll go to the live version. Let's go to more. So when you go to a map right now in Hedron, it has infinite zoom. So you'll notice that like normally when an image gets bigger, like when you just make an image bigger, it gets blurry, right? Hedron maps don't have that issue. No matter how much you blur, or how much you scroll, they're always going to be crystal clear. Like you see how we can see that little intersection. Even when we zoom out, you can't even see that intersection because my screen monitor only has enough pixels. That's the main reason we use SVGs. In all honesty, they're actually better they're better for things like maps. So it creates this like illusion of infinite scrollability. It actually also means that long term we can actually connect like battle grids to the world maps, so you can kind of scroll in from really far out and just be like, at some point it goes from being a world map to being a battle grid, and instead it just shows you a battle grid because you've zoomed in so far that that's the granularity you are at. That's the sort of idea long term. We'll have to get to that, but yeah. So imports will probably take the easy fix for imports. They're just like plopping an image down and working with it. That'll probably take, I would say, 2-3 weeks. It's like rising up on my like task list. It's almost the top of the task list. It'll be coming very soon. The full importing, where it's sort of like reads your image, converts it to SVG, and then reuses it that way. That will take probably I'm gonna say January or February. I would say there's just so much we have to do in the meantime, like fixing the navigation, macros, validations, custom dice faces, the mobile app, which is hopefully coming out very soon, and the very much coveted offline access. People really wanted that. We have to deliver offline access, and we're aiming to deliver it by end of year. That's still on track for the most part. I'm starting to be a little worried that it might be like week 1 or week 2 of January. Hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we can just deliver it in December and call it a day. But, somewhere in that realm, offline access will be coming very soon. So those are the kind of things that I think take a little bit more precedence, unfortunately, over maps. Hope that's okay with you, Xian. If it's not, tell me. Prioritization is also one of those things where I need people to tell me what's important to them, right? Like, I'm not necessarily going to know what's important to everyone. So if you tell me what you want to see, then it helps me know. And obviously, like, if there's one person saying this is important, but then there's 100 people saying that's important, then, like, I'm going to prioritize the thing that 100 people want rather than one person. But, I won't know unless anyone's saying anything. So, yeah. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. Wish I had better news for you. There's just so much going on. Any other questions? I'll wait. So I've also heard some people like this live stream format more because they don't have a mic or they don't want to join a voice channel for whatever reason. And I'm kind of curious if that's a general opinion. Oh, you'll talk to me in Discord. Okay, perfect. Yeah, talk to me in Discord. Curious if anyone has any thoughts about the live stream versus fireside chat, especially if you go to both fireside and live stream chat, like fireside chats and also live stream chat. Kind of curious if there's any thoughts one way or the other. I definitely feel like the fireside chats are more like back and forth because they're voice based. Like I can actually talk to you guys, but I don't know. Maybe that's just a me thing. Maybe other people have other thoughts. Curious. I'll wait a few minutes for any other questions, comments, anything. You like both? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, there's no reason not to do both, right? Like, no skin off our teeth to do both, especially while we still can. Like, while it's plausible and feasible to do both, we should do both. Yeah, especially if we're doing tutorials, because it helps us get video content for tutorials. What if you live streamed while on Discord working with others? Actually, I do that in Fireside Chat sometimes. If there's a topic that someone needs help with, I just kind of ask them to live stream, or I can just myself go in and live stream my screen and show them how to do something. So I do actually live stream in the Discord sometimes. It's really only if someone asks for it or someone needs something that's like, oh, it's just easier to show you. But yeah, I do think if you mean like simultaneously casting, that might get a little confusing. If I just join a voice channel right now, that might be a little confusing for everyone involved. But yeah, Tales Untold, I enjoy both quite a bit. Fair enough. Yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. Refreshing because I moved something. But yeah, fair enough. I'll wait a few more minutes. If there's any other questions, anything on mind, anything you want to find out about. There's a lot of news coming up. Actually, while I'm here, I might as well mention this too, because it's something that is actually actively happening. That might be worth noting. Is newsletters. The newsletter, we're shifting it from weekly to monthly. So basically, instead of sending you a weekly newsletter that is partially stuff you've already read, partially stuff that you might not care about, I want to send one newsletter every month that is like, here's the most important things that happened in the last month. So that way it's a little bit more focused and a little bit more directed and a little bit less kind of all over the place and a little bit more about the stuff that you probably care about. The idea is that I want the newsletter to be something that you look forward to, and that's something that like when you read it, you're like, yeah, this was really valuable. Not just, oh, I already read all this, I don't really care. With the marketplace update, will there be options for different currency displays? So to my understanding, and I have to double check this, but I'm going to say, to my understanding, the marketplace, because it goes through Stripe dynamically changes the currency to the local currency of the purchaser. Not certain about that. I'm going to double check that. But if that's the case, that should hopefully give you that sort of automatic currency adjustment. So like if you're looking for currency in a specific, like if the buyer is in, I don't know, China, right? Like they'll get their units in renminbi, or I think that's the currency of China, renminbi. Or if they're in Japan, they'll get yen rather than US dollars. If they're in the Europe, they'll get euros instead of US dollars. So yeah. Fonts, extra fonts. That is actually something that we are definitely doing, and very soon actually. So context, last week we did our overhaul of how we store things under the hood. That opened the door to custom fonts anywhere in the site, basically. In fact, you can actually set custom fonts if you know a little bit of HTML. But we're going to make it so you don't need to know HTML. And yes, that'll happen very soon. Very, very soon. And by very soon, I mean like this month. It's actually not a technical challenge. It was a technical challenge when we didn't have HTML-based storage, but now we have HTML-based storage. So having custom fonts is actually pretty easy. We'll just have to basically add in the functionality for it. So that should be happening by end of month. Any line, it'll be down to word. or a character even. If you want a specific character to use a different font, like character as in like the letter C or the letter H or something like that, you can make individual characters have their own fonts. You can make individual words have their own fonts. You can have any level of granularity you want. You can even change the color of the fonts, actually, because now it's HTML based. I was actually testing this the other day during Fireside Chat. I basically tried to create like a single word that was a different color than the rest of the words, and it works. It actually fully works. So definitely give it a try. You'll see what I mean. But you'll see the features will to make it so you don't have to know any of that stuff. They'll be out very soon as well. Hopefully that answers the question, but yes, that one's exciting. Sometimes I like to keep cards up my sleeve to basically be like, surprise, we now support this. So some of those things like fonts will be one of those things where it's like, surprise, you now support this. Less surprise now, but still going to be a surprise for everyone who's not in this stream. Yep, indeed, very. Any other questions, comments, concerns, anything that's on your mind? And of course, this video gets uploaded afterwards as a full thing, so you can always reference this back later. In fact, if in a few weeks custom fonts are not here, you can be like, hey, remember that live stream, and you could send me the link of me saying it. Which doesn't mean I have to be careful about what I promise, but yes. I always talk from the best of my knowledge while I'm waiting for anyone to comment. If anyone has anything else they want to add, comments, questions, etc., I'll say everything I say is always from the best of my knowledge. Hopefully it stays accurate. Most of the time it does stay accurate. Sometimes it doesn't, and I usually make a big public statement about it. But yeah. Anything else on mind? Open Q&A. Anything you need? Things you want to ask about? Things on your mind? People who are joining us still, feel free to chime in with any ideas or questions or concerns or anything you could possibly think of. It's basically Fireside Chat, just in a different medium. Give another minute or two here. Also checking Discord if anyone sends a message that way. I'll be on Discord today as always. I say that I'll be on Discord, but anyone who's on the Hedron Discord knows I'm always on the Discord basically. So for whatever it's worth, I'll be on the Discord very active today. So yeah, just finishing up the navigation. Hope to get that done today. That's the one goal. I've been working on it for a few days now. It's actually been quite a process. I'll probably actually release the patch notes for the everything up till now, and then the navigation will be part of next week's patch notes, just because I think last week's patch notes are running a little late at this point. So yeah, I'll probably do that right after this meeting, or not meeting, sorry, right after this live stream. I've been in meetings all day. It's just how it is. Like work. Waiting. Good, one more minute. If any questions, things that people come up with. Of course, if you miss out, don't worry. It happens every week. And actually it also happens twice a week outside of this live stream. It still feels weird to be talking to the void. Like, as in not like, the chat isn't quite void, but what I mean is like, I'm sitting here in a room alone. It's always a little strange that, I've heard this is common among people who start streaming, that like, you don't actually like get used to it for a long time. Yeah, I'm not even here to be a streamer. I'm just here to answer questions. It's a very strange experience, but here we are. Okay, I've given a few minutes. I see the viewer count starting to drop because we're probably wrapping up here, so I'm gonna actually call it there. I'm gonna say thank you everyone for joining me, and I will look forward to conversations in Discord and elsewhere anytime, anywhere on the server, or anywhere really. If you send me a message and I somehow see it, I'll reply to it. Thank you everyone for joining me. See you next week.